Hey there, gang. I've got something a little out of the ordinary for us here today. This will be more of a show and tell episode. As several people have been inquiring about this guitar, it appeared in various other videos during its construction, and they want to know how it turned out. So I'll give you a bit of a rundown on it. This is a 7-string guitar with some pretty unusual features. Now, as a guitar maker, it seems to be my lot in life to be the guy who builds stuff that no one else has ever built before. People show up and they ask me for things that they can't find in any store. They'll have a dream for something that's unavailable, and it becomes my job to facilitate that for them and bring it into reality. The really strange thing is, because I'm a guitar repair person first and foremost, that's how I make most of my living, there are not a lot of extra hours in the day for me to be working on, say, for instance, developing a standard model, building it over and over again and becoming really familiar with it. I don't usually get to make the same guitar more than once. There's a good bit of sort of seat of the pants kind of work involved, a lot of pre-planning. I can't buy a blueprint for something like this guitar. I have to work on it as I go, and the design tends to evolve during the process. I was contacted by a player named Adam Hendy, who's the guitarist in a band called The Fire. And they do traditional Scottish music with pipes and fiddle and guitar, and it's pretty good stuff. I will leave a link in the description or on the screen here so you can check out their channel, because they've made some pretty amazing videos in fantastic locations like a glacier, or glacier if you're in England. Adam plays guitar. He also plays bouzouki, and he came up with this idea for a 7-string instrument. Now, 99 times out of 100, when you make a 7-string guitar, the extra note is going on the bass side. Adam wanted to reverse that. He plays in DADGADA, which is great for that kind of music. It's got all these sort of rich overtones, those lovely propulsive droning sounds in them, and sort of doubled strings. You've got D-A-D, G-A-D, and now he's got a high A. And a lot of guitar makers in the audience just went, "Ooh, boy, ouch." Yeah, high A, which is the same note you'd find on the 5th fret of the 1st string on a standard tuned guitar. So that poses some issues. You don't see that on guitars with standard string length very often, for a reason, but we managed to find a way to get around that. I'll do a quick catalog of the woods involved here. Sorry if there's any background noise. I've got my humidifier running because it's pretty dry right now. The top is made of Sitka spruce. This is a pretty old top. I've had it for a good many years, and it was actually from the estate of another luthier, so I think it was cut in the 80s. It's more than 30 years air-dried at this point. Lots of silking or cross-grain medullary rays here. A lot of pattern. There's some bear claw and just a lot of character to it. I like it a lot. Back and sides are mahogany. The fingerboard and bridge and the head plates are ebony. And the binding on this is actually a piece of Tasmanian blackwood that's got some figure in it. It's a little bit of a curl to it. It's pretty nice. You can see one of the major design features of this guitar. It's got a fanned fretboard, multi-scale. So we have a 24-inch scale on the treble side, 25 on the bass, and the frets align between those two, causing this fan shape to them. It's actually easier to play than you might think. The common fret, or the one that is perpendicular to the center line of the neck, which is shared between both scales, is the 8th. The inclination is, I think, for most people who are designing one of these things without thinking about it, is using the 12th fret. So you would divide the fan between both halves of the guitar. What you'll find if you do that is, as you get towards the end here, the 1st fret will actually be a lot more angled. So I tend to try to load it more towards the bridge side a little bit, because it's easier to deal with that than trying to fret on an extremely angled surface. Again, most people can adapt to it readily. It's not that difficult, and when you're playing it, it's pretty much intuitive. I've got hip shot locking tuners on here. There's a 0 fret, and the frets themselves, they're stainless frets. Sort of a medium size. Bigger than some acoustic wire, smaller than some electric wire. It's kind of a happy medium. There's a back strap of ebony on here too, so the headstock is sandwiched on both sides with ebony. For pickups, I've got a K&K Pure system here with onboard EQ and volume and all that. That's the 3-dot system that goes underneath the bridge plate, and I think that's pretty much my favorite for smaller bodied acoustic instruments right now. It's hard to beat. I really like the sound. It'll pick up all 7 strings just fine, good balance between them. This other one's fun. This is a Hexa pickup from Ubertar. It's very small, very compact, and only picks up the 7th string. What I've done is wired in with its own separate output jack, and that'll let Adam be playing rhythm guitar, picking out bass notes, and the signal from this one string can be processed using an octave pedal, so he's effectively playing bass along with rhythm at the same time. It's pretty handy in a trio situation. This thing, believe it or not, is actually it's a real .40 caliber handgun cartridge casing that they managed to stuff this thing into. I came up with a little wooden holder that glues to the underside of the soundboard, and there's also a set screw there that lets me raise and lower this up to the correct height under the strings. There's a shot of those 2 output jacks. I imagine that's the one you put the strap on. And of course you guys saw me make this armrest bevel here, this Alaskan style armrest. Stringing a beast like this can be a bit of a challenge, obviously. Adam's been experimenting with the mini dreadnought with a shorter scale that approximates this, and he's come up with a set that he likes. The lower strings are normal. They're straight out of a medium gauge acoustic set. Everything's the same until you reach the 3rd string. This A here with a shorter scale is pretty floppy, so he's graduated up to a wound 19, which is actually from an electric set. It's not a particularly common string. I had to order some of those. He likes a 14 for the D, and this upper A, he's apparently getting away with using 9s. I gotta tell you, I broke a couple of those in the setup process, and when you're tuning it up there, you get above G, you know, the hand starts to shake a little because you're ready for the snap. It's really, really tight. There's no give to it at all. It just feels a little dangerous. So I chickened out and I started using some 8s, and I like these a bit better. They're still quite tight, but there's a little more give to them. You obviously would not want to be doing a lot of heavy bending on this guitar. But they work fine. In terms of the overall string tension, it's important when you're designing an instrument like this to consult with the string manufacturer's websites, check out the tension rating for each of the strings, and figure out cumulatively what it's all going to add up to at various tunings. As it turns out, with the drop D tuning, even with the extra string and it being so taut, we're pretty close to what a standard set of strings would be on a regular scale instrument. So that's nice. It's good to know. It's not in danger of blowing up. Here's a shot of the interior. It's an asymmetrical X-brace to catch the ends of that angled bridge, and in the lower bout there's a modified lattice pattern with a carbon fiber reinforcement on top. I gotta tell you, I had some terrible times with the finish of this guitar. Unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I use my standard regimen, I use the same materials I always do, but I got some really weird results. It's a waterborne finish I've been using for 2 or 3 years now, and I've had good results with it. To start off with, I did the body, and I noticed that I was getting these weird crater-like pebbly things going on in there. It wasn't like unfilled pores. They were just like fissures or something. And I sanded off flat and put some more on, and they reappeared. And it was like, I don't know, was it silicone contamination or something in the wood? I can't tell. After a couple of tries, I decided, okay, I'm not going to try to strip this all off. I sanded it flat as I could, and then I French polished shellac using a padding lacquer. It's just my regular shellac, but I've added some Sanderac resin in it to give it a bit more toughness. It's kind of a violin maker's trick. So I did the body. The neck was a different story, though. It seemed to take the lacquer exactly like it always does. It worked just fine. It buffed up nicely and everything. Until I started working on the ends of the frets, and I noticed that there were little areas along the fingerboard edge there that did not seem to be sticking down properly. I could sort of brush against it and feel it, and it was like, no, something's not right there. I could see that it wasn't perfectly adhered, and if I touched it in the right way, it flaked off like a potato chip. So at that point I was like, oh no, you got to be kidding me. Spent so much time finishing and refinishing. So I stripped it all off. I basically got a razor blade and cracked it all off. Fun times. Sanded it off flat again, and then French polished it too. So this guitar has a finish that's more like a 1920s Martin than a modern Dreadnought. I don't know what's going on with that finish, whether it's something I did or whether it's the finish. I wasn't happy though. So I'll play this thing a little bit and you can hear what it sounds like. Again, I'm really not a DADGAD guy. I haven't spent much time on that tuning at all, so it'll really be amateur hour. However, people get angry with me if I don't play at the end of the video, so, you know, it's necessity. You gotta listen to it. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.